you turn on social media, there are graduation pictures with parents and grandparents proud of their children, proud to see what they're becoming, spouses, just like I am, very proud of Nicole. When we began this journey, she was in college, and then she decided to take the back seat to let me finish my PhD work, but then in time she went back, and I think she's planning on going back and getting her master's, her doctorate. I would like to see that. That's one of my goals, to make sure she has that. So I don't easily give up. So we will have a Dr. Nicole Shah one of these days soon. But one thing that is relatively new with regards to the graduate, just to clarify, not in textual criticism, in counseling or field like that. But one thing that is relatively new is the graduation attire. When I was a principal or when I was graduating, we were told repeatedly, do not do anything to your caps, because there were always some who would mess with the caps, and they said, do not do that. But do you know now it's a trend to do that, to decorate your caps. And I found a few that I thought were very interesting, starting with this one. It says, bye, buddy, hope you find a job. That's good in the movie. Here's another one. This was nothing like High School Musical. Now, we had two girls, and I watched High School Musical way too many times. Nothing like High School Musical. Here's another one. Did everyone see that? Because I will not be doing it again. Bye, Mr. Anderson, I'm graduating, tardy or not. In the final year, I had teachers saying, Mr. Shaw, we have so many tardies. Like, it doesn't count. They're graduating. We cannot hold them back for coming in late to school. Here's another one. Thousands of tears later, for all the SpongeBob fans. I don't even go here. I love that. Last minute, like everything else I did in high school. So creative. Y'all hiring? And here's one that I thought was my favorite. I is smart. Now, there's a contradiction in that statement. On one hand, that student is saying, I'm smart because I'm graduating. On the other hand, they're also facetiously saying I should not be allowed to graduate because I can't even form a simple grammatical statement. It's a contradiction. But this morning, I'm speaking not on contradictions, but paradoxes. Because we're living in the age of paradoxes more than at any other time in history. Life is full of paradoxes. We always have. Every age has it. But now, more than ever, and many of them are not good. And I want to talk about that this morning, still in our series through 1 Peter. So go ahead and find chapter 3 and verse 13. 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 13. But this message, of course, is for the graduates, but also for all of us, for every one of us, because it applies. And here's the heart of the message, 1 Peter 3:13. Ours is the age of paradoxes, especially in the post-2020 world. We have some paradoxes where we are smarter and dumber at the same time, where we are united and divided at the same time, bold and afraid all at the same time, and we are woke and wicked all at the same time. And here's a challenge not only to our graduates, but to all of us. The challenge is this: we have to adopt a new set of paradoxes, not these, but a new set that will please God and fulfill His purpose in this world. Paradoxes are unavoidable. The choice, which ones do you pick? That's the message. You ready? 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 13. And who is he who will harm you if you become followers of what is good? Now keep in mind that Peter had just quoted from Psalm 34, David's psalm at the cave of Adullam. Those of you who have been here throughout the series, David wrote this psalm after he had fled The Philistine king, he came to the cave and he began to write this psalm. Initially, the psalm talks about God's rescue. He is grateful. But the second half of the psalm, he is talking to the people who have come to him, the distressed, the indebted, the dissatisfied. And David wrote this psalm not only to get their hearts on God, but also to teach them about life. Remember, watch your mouth, depart from evil. And then he talked to them about don't be afraid of the wicked. God sees everything. He sees the wicked and the righteous, and he will not allow the wicked to attack the righteous. Don't be afraid. And Peter, in his letter to the church in Asia Minor, he quoted from Psalm 34. In fact, if you notice the previous verse, the verse up here just now was verse 13, but the previous verse, verse 12, is a quotation. For the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are open to their prayers, but the face of the Lord is against those who do evil. And the next verse is what? And who is he who will harm you? A better way to say this conjunction would be, so then, based on the fact Psalm 34 is true, wicked cannot attack the righteous. God sees it all. Who will harm you? Why are you afraid? Are y'all getting this? It's a rhetorical question. Who do you think will harm you if you become followers of what is good? But wait, here comes the next verse, verse 14. But even if you should suffer. Wait a minute, I thought, Peter, you just quoted from Psalm 34 to remind us that we will not suffer. I thought you just told us that God sees the wicked and the righteous. He will not allow the wicked to attack the righteous. Wait, no. But even if you should suffer for righteousness' sake, you are blessed. Here we have a paradox. Now, there's a big difference between paradox and contradictions. Let me write that down for you. What is a contradiction? Well, contradictions are statements where one thing is right and the other thing is wrong. One is true, one is false. For example, living death. It's a contradiction. Now, don't get spiritual, but you cannot be physically both alive and dead at the same time. We use that metaphorically, but in reality, a person cannot be live dead. Neither can you be rich poor. Poor little rich kid. Remember that? Richie Rich? You cannot be poor and rich at the same time. You say, well, you have riches in Christ. I'm not talking spiritually, I'm talking financially. Those are contradictions. What we're talking about are not contradictions, but paradoxes. What is a paradox or paradoxes? Paradoxes are things on the surface it seems like a contradiction. Until you dig deeper and you go, wait a minute, it does make sense. It is true. Paradox. Life is full of paradoxes. You say, give us some examples. In fact, the first half of the message is about those examples. The world in which we're living is the age of paradoxes more than at any other time in history. And it has been brought about by the internet. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not some old fogey who is like, we cannot go to the World Wide Web all the time. I'm not that. In fact, every second, do you know that we're using the internet to make this happen? What's happening here as they're talking to me, as they're controlling everything, it's all the internet. So I'm not here to tell you, man, the internet is just of the devil and terrible thing. But what I am saying to you is that the internet has created the age of paradoxes more than at any other time in history. You say, give us some examples, starting with this one. Would you agree that we are smarter and dumber like never before? Thanks to the internet. You can go online. As I'm talking to you, you could be typing things and find so much information that you can have 1,000 lifetimes and still not exhaust. So much information. Poor people in the remote part of the world, Maasai tribes, villagers in India, somewhere in Eastern Europe where there's nothing left but the internet. They can access information just like that. Smarter than ever. Would you also agree with me that we have become dumber through the internet as well? Would you agree with me there's loads and loads and loads of false information? Are y'all with me on that? And it's not just false information, we're also spreading that false information constantly. In 2020, a lot of decisions were made, a lot of panic and fear-mongering happened because of false information. I had people who would come and ask me, hey, Pastor Shah, I saw this headline, I clicked on it, it went nowhere. It had this catchy title that this is the research and this is happening. I clicked and it's nowhere. Well, yeah, exactly, but you clicked and you shared. They did some research and they found that many people shared things, but they never took the time to read an article if it was even legitimate. You know what's happening to our culture? On one hand, we're smarter, but on the other hand, we're becoming dumber through the internet. Here's the second thing. We are united. We are one big, happy internet family. Man, we're all connected. People all over the world connected, just like, especially on social media, we're connected. We're making friends. We're reconnecting with old ones. How many of y'all wish some of your old friends hadn't reconnected? They haven't changed, have they? It's like they got age on them, but they're still just as crazy. We are this one big, happy internet family, especially through the coming of the social media. But here's also something to keep in mind. We're also more divided now than at any other time in history. Don't think I don't know history. I do. Yeah, I've studied World War I and II and all the stuff that's going on, but never before, because on the internet, you don't need guns to fight, but you can be totally fragmented. And we are divided on every line you can think of, whether it's racial or political or financial, you just name it. Culture, we have been so fragmented as never before. Unfortunately, in the church as well, the same division coming from this paradox has infiltrated the body. How can I combat that? I can't control your internet. I can't consume, I can't control the garbage that you're consuming. I can preach the truth and hope that in the power of the Holy Spirit you will see what is real and what's not. And yet we are becoming united and divided at the same time. It's easy for people to be a keyboard warrior. You know what a keyboard warrior is? Just like start typing things and put it out there. In a cancel culture, I didn't know what that meant until recently. You know what cancel culture is? If you don't like somebody, you can bum rush them. You can just all jump at the same time and just boo them off the stage. Don't tell me Christians don't do that. We have our own kind of, cancel culture. You can target people, make them look bad and hope they come back and read and check what you have posted. And here's what has happened, this paradox. We are more united and divided than any other time. But here's a third one. We are more bold today than any other time in history. Really. I mean, again, I'm going back to the internet. I hold the internet responsible. I hold social media responsible because this is where people put opinions and even pictures. Y'all help me today. How many of y'all would not dare put some of the pictures that we had back from high school? We didn't want anybody to find out that kind of stuff. Nowadays, they put it out there. Researchers say that it's good for self-esteem. You can take a nice picture, take about 50 of them, find the best angle, do a little filter on it, put it out there, and then come look at it 50 times and feel good about yourself. People do that. Did you know that? Did y'all know that researchers are telling that self-esteem is on the rise because of social media? And then you'll always have 50 people come back and say, you're handsome. I want to do that one of these days. A real pensive shot, like something like that. And please, y'all, come by and be nice. Say something nice. Wow, what a handsome guy. Right? It's helped self-esteem, but here's the sad part. We're also more afraid now than ever before, afraid of being called out. In 2020, repeatedly, the staff team, somebody would come and say, do you want to post that picture? We had this, do you want to post that? Because if you do, somebody may call us out. Initially, it was like, yeah, let's not do that. Yeah, let's not. After a while, I said, you know why? We're afraid of some mob out there that will blast us, who have absolutely zero vested interest in this place. You want them to decide what we are bragging about? So post everything out there. Post it. Post it out there. Are y'all getting this? This is what is needed. We're afraid of being called out. How many decisions were made last year all because, hey, don't do that because somebody will blast you. Here's the last one. We are woke and wicked at the same time. I don't know what woke meant, but it's been around for some time, right? It's been around. Came across that. It's an awareness of social justice or lack of it, or racism, especially on social media. But now it has spread to everything from LGBTQ++, whatever, or women's rights, or immigrants' rights, or the disenfranchised rights, or every fringe movement's rights. This is, you're awake of the dignity of people, so you're woke. Here's a sad reality. Many of the same crowd are also very wicked. Don't cross them. You'll find out. They will tear you down to pieces with so many words and so much hate. Same platform, same internet, and at the same time, we're so concerned about everybody feeling loved and accepted, and at the same time, if you don't, we will tear you to shreds. It's a paradox. Woke and wicked. Bold and afraid. United and divided, and of course, smarter and dumber at the same time. And unfortunately, we talk about wickedness, pornography is on the rise. We talk about the dignity of women and children. Why is there more pornography now than ever before? And who's tolerating that? Sometimes I see the same crowd. Hate and bitterness hasn't gone. And here's a sad reality. This is the world in which our 2020 graduates and 2021 graduates are entering. My purpose in this message is not to scare you, doom and gloom, but to face reality. This is the world that awaits them. And add to all these paradoxes, you have the political chaos of 2020, 2021. Add to all of this, the terrible violence, destruction that we saw. I mean, I grew up overseas. I grew up third world country. And we saw some riots, and we saw things people do. Guess what? Here's the sad thing. It's no different. It looks very similar. In fact, in many places it looks worse. And this is America. This is the first world. And yet we're living like this. And yet we're doing some of the things we're doing and attacking, increasing attack on values and Constitution. The Constitution of our nation. Now, it's like we're sitting on a branch and chopping it off at the same time, saying this document has to go. We have to cast this aside and create a new one. As a result of all of this, let me keep going. We are now trillions of dollars in debt. I don't even know what millions looks like. Billions. What does trillions look like? Folks, help me, please. How can you print money like we're printing and just send it and send it and send it? Have you heard of the word inflation? You know what inflation looks like? Study history. Inflation is where you take a wheelbarrow full of money to go buy a bar of soap. That's what inflation looks like. And when you do go to buy, the shelves are bare because there's nothing to buy. So you can have money, except the value is so worthless. You say, oh, Pastor Shaw, we come to church to lift our faith and feel good and all that stuff. Yeah, sure, of course, that's what I want to do. But you cannot do that by ignoring reality. inflation is coming like a tsunami. You cannot continue this way. You cannot keep printing money that has nothing to back it up and say, here you go, you want some more money? Here you go. Everybody gets free money. And then all the divisions, and if you don't agree with those divisions, that now there is hate and anger and the uncertain future where, more pandemics are coming. Already they're talking about that. And how about across the globe? Things are not any better. Due to the shutdowns, at least in America, you have Acts or you have Kindle. We go out and distribute food as people need, and constantly we're helping people. But in that part of the world, I had somebody on the way out said they saw images from Asia. It's heartbreaking because people are dying, not because of some virus, they're dying because they don't have food to eat. Can you imagine what that feels like? There is no food. And you have millions of people, no food. Stores are empty, there's nothing there. They're closed. Farmlands, nobody can work. This is the condition. And of course, terrorism on the rise. And thank God for the ceasefire. But as you saw the attack against Israel constantly, we saw all this going on. If our post-2020 graduates are to survive, they will need a new set of paradoxes. I know today's message is a little deep, but I hope you catch what I'm saying to you. Having paradoxes is not optional. Which ones you pick, you have an option. And what Peter is doing here very quickly in 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 13, he gives them a paradox, but stay with me here. Verse 13, who is he who will harm you if you become followers of what is good? Statement 1, proposition 1. Comes proposition 2, which makes it a paradox. But even if you should suffer for righteousness' sake, you are blessed. But I want you to pay attention to the next line. And do not be afraid of their threats, nor be troubled. Do not be afraid of their threats, nor be troubled. Seems like Peter is just telling us, don't be afraid, don't be scared. Oh no. He's actually quoting from Isaiah chapter 8 and verse 12. Nor be afraid of their threats, nor be troubled. You know, when I get to heaven one day, after Jesus and Paul and Moses and Dave and all these people, I'm going to make sure I find Peter and tell him, we're so sorry because we made you look like an idiot back home. Because you could not say things right. You were always speaking at the wrong time. You know, Peter, right? Am I right with that? Peter's always got his foot in his mouth. Not true, folks. Peter was a man who was steeped into the Word of God. He is so rich in theology. As he is telling his readers, listen, live by the paradox. Nothing can hurt you, but even if it does, you're blessed. Don't be afraid. He actually quoted from a passage given to people who were facing a very real danger. In Isaiah chapter 8, verse 12. I don't have time to go into detail. This is a promise that God gave to Isaiah. Why? Some of y'all remember, we talked about the exile. Because the southern kingdom was turning to Assyria for help. They were afraid of the northern kingdom, and so they said, look, we're going to jump over you and find Assyria and build an alliance with them so that you cannot hurt us. And God told the southern kingdom through Isaiah, don't go there. Don't turn to Assyria. Don't go to Egypt. Look to me. I love those people. Well, I don't know if I love them. Well, I live in the real world. You know, all this church stuff, as if I live in Magic Kingdom or something. Come on, folks. I live in the real world too. In the real world, you need to realize that God is in control. Turn to Him. And God was telling Isaiah, listen, these people are scared. The people of Judah are scared. Don't be afraid of their threats. Don't be scared of the same thing they're scared of. And don't be troubled. Question, did those people listen to Isaiah? They did not listen. What did they do? Every time they could, they went to Assyria. Every time they could, they went to Egypt. They went everywhere else instead of God. And ultimately, the southern kingdom was taken into exile to Babylon. Isaiah died. Isaiah was killed. Isaiah died. But the word to him was, don't be afraid of their threats, nor be troubled. They did not listen, but guess who listened? Their children and their grandchildren. Who were the children and grandchildren of the people to whom God sent this word? Well, let's see. Daniel. Have you heard of Daniel? Have you heard of Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego? Great-granddaddy and great-grandmama did not listen to God, but they did. About 100 or some years later, you have these men and women who were taken into exile to Babylon who lived by this promise with a whole different set of paradoxes. Let's look at them very quickly in closing. The first one was this: they complied. But they also, what's the word? Resisted every step of the way. So, when they got to Babylon, they were given new names. Did you know that Daniel was not his Babylonian name? He was Belteshazzar. He keeps using Daniel, but Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego are Babylonian names. You going to give us new names? Okay, we'll take them. How about food? We're not going to eat that food. Listen to what it says in Daniel chapter 1 and verse 8. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's delicacies, nor with the wine which he drank, which means this: you'll have to teach your children to comply and still resist. You say, well, the Bible talks about listening to authorities. I had a few emails like that. I didn't answer. Of course, my time is very valuable. People pay me money to teach Greek and stuff. So sometimes if I feel like this person is just trying to make a point, I'm not going to waste my time. There's no money in it. So they asked the question, do you not, Romans 13 and 1 Peter chapter 2, it talks about listening to authorities. I said, read carefully. There is resistance language throughout. I'm sorry you're missing it, but I can see it in the Greek. Constantly, Paul and Peter told their listeners, obey the authorities, respect the authorities, honor the governor. At the same time, you keep resisting. Hey, listen, parents, grandparents, you'll have to learn and teach your children how to comply and still resist. You say, wait a minute, that didn't sound right. It sounds right when you realize when people come to lock the church doors, when they tell you that Christianity is all well and good, but it's offending some people, that's when you have to teach your children to stand up and say, we'll comply, but we're not going to comply all the way. Somehow, those great-grandparents did not obey God, but they instilled it in their families, in their next generation. That's why last year we said, oh, you're going to comply? Of course we'll comply. We'll do. Yeah, right now it's time to shut down. When they said open, it's like, oh, absolutely. Why? Because church is essential. Teach your children that. Teach your children that. Ask that question. If that persecution comes, and you don't have to answer it publicly in your own heart, will your children stand? There you go. You got the answer. Here's a paradox that you have to teach them to live by, to comply and resist every step of the way. Here's number 2. They looked to the past, but lived in the present. What does that mean? When those around Daniel saw how he was being blessed and how the king was exalting him, they began to look for a way to trap him. How can they trap him? With his God. So what we're going to do is this. For 30 days, you cannot pray to anybody else but to King Darius. And if anybody offends this law of the Medes and the Persians, you'll be thrown in the lion's den. But I want you to pay attention to this because we miss this so often. How did David begin this prayer? Listen to this. Daniel chapter 6, verse 10. Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went home, and in his upper room, pay attention, in his upper room with the windows open towards where? Now we talk about prayer, but he did not just drop down and pray, he had a direction to pray. He was looking towards Jerusalem. But wait, Daniel, Jerusalem is gone. Jerusalem is destroyed. The walls are gone. The temple is gone. The houses are gone. No, he was looking to the place where he came from. Here's a word of advice to you. How much have you taken the time to teach your children? You teach them baseball and basketball and football and dance and music. Have you given them the foundation of where this nation came from? Do you know there's a concerted effort to completely wipe out our history? Now, I'm not saying for a moment that our history is impeccable and is perfect. Of course, we have our problems and we have sins that we need to continue to repent. Having said that, this nation was founded upon Judeo-Christian values. And there's an effort to revise that history and take it completely away. The founding fathers were nothing but deists and bigots. Have you taken the time to show them the past and say, guys, this is what the past is, and do not ever let anyone destroy your foundation? But they lived in the present, which means this. They did not look back and just stay in the back, but they also lived in the present. They did not live in nostalgia. By the way, for those of you who are still thinking, man, summer's here, boy, life is good, everything is lifted, just know that the world has changed. And it's not going back to 2019. We are too far down the ramp to back up. The world has changed, even if it looks quite normal. Below the surface, it's not normal. It's anything but normal. Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, they looked to the past. They always remembered where they came from, and yet they lived in the present. Here's a third one very quickly. They worked as if it all depended on them. Work. How much did Daniel work? Listen to this, Daniel chapter 2, verse 48. Then the king promoted Daniel and gave him many great gifts, and he made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon. Folks, I can't even imagine his workload. I mean, imagine how much work this man had to do. And by the way, for all of you who are concerned about all the rough time you had growing up and all the struggles that you have, Daniel was from Judah, had been ripped apart. More than likely, his family has been killed. His home has been destroyed. How many of you would be like, yeah, that's right, I'm going to go to the new country and help them build their empire? Now, we would have had hashtag not my country. Right? I figured y'all would love that. Listen to this. Daniel chapter 2, verse 48. The king promoted him, made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and the chief administrator over all the wise men. Imagine the pressure. Verse 49, also Daniel petitioned the king, and he said, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. It seems like it's just 4 men, right? It just seems like there's 4 guys in exile. There were a whole lot more. These were the leaders. And there were men and women. Think about Esther. She's in exile. She will come a few years later, a few decades later, but they're also children of the exile. And what did they do? Listen to this. And Daniel petitioned them and put them over the affairs of the province of Babylon. But Daniel sat in the gate of the king, which means this. Other than also taking care of the administration of the empire, he also had to sit and counsel the king. Well, what if the time is running out? Well, that's fine, but you still have to go finish the rest of your work. We're living in a culture where people don't want to work. Right? How many of y'all are hiring in your workplace? Look at that, hands are going everywhere. People don't want to work. We came out of a restaurant the other day. You will know which one it is if I describe and if you've been there. Came outside, there's a table set up with the lemonade and tea or whatever, with forms and flyers, and a rep standing there. And I said, well, what are we selling here? He said, oh, no, we're signing people up if they want to work. I said, oh, any luck? Oh, we have about 7, 8 people every day. I said, well, that's good. Oh, no, they don't come back. They just go and tell the unemployment office they tried. Now, folks, that blows my mind how that is normal for people. Please don't talk to me about workaholic, because I am one, and I love it. It's all right to work. It's all right to work hard. Amen. It's all right to work hard. Some of us work out and work hard and everything else in between. And listen, this is something to instill in our young people, that work is important. These men, they could have easily sat on a recliner and talked about all the troubles they had. But at the same time, something is very important. They also prayed as if it all depended on God. Listen to how Daniel prayed in Daniel chapter 9, verse 20. Now, while I was speaking, praying, and confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel. That's the kind of young people you want to raise. And presenting my supplication before the Lord my God for the holy mountain of my God. Yes, while I was speaking in prayer. Well, our kids don't like to pray in public. Well, you know what? And on your dinner table, tell them you're going to pray. If you don't, you don't eat. Amen. Well, then you can go to bed. We're not eating. Call them to pray. Teach them. You see, even though, stay with me, even though the grandparents and great-grandparents blew it, somehow they instilled in Daniel and the rest of them the value of hard work and prayer. Moms, why do you keep doing things for your children? Why don't you make them work? Dads, why don't you teach them? Why are you coddling them? Do you really think you'll be here for the rest of their lives to take care of them? And the way the world is headed, the garbage that is coming, you are setting them up for failure. You see, coming to church is not just about how to get saved and love God and go to heaven one day. This is also about how you live your life. What I'm doing here this morning is helping you lead your children, your grandchildren to live the life in a very unprecedented future. And here's the last one, a new set of paradox. Ultimately, they were aware of the hopelessness they were in. Unless you become aware of what's happening, this message will look like, I don't know, what are you so upset about? I'll go to church and, man, I want to hear a word of encouragement. Well, open your eyes. Ask God, God, help me really see what's happening in these United States. Help me to see the mess that we are in. If you don't pray that, you will live in this delusional world where you feel like everything is fine and people just need to get over it. We are in a hopeless situation. It is rough. And having come from that side of the world, a lot of things are looking very familiar. A lot of things. And I feel for the young generation. I feel for the graduates, and there is hopelessness. So listen to how Daniel prayed in Daniel chapter 9, verse 16. O Lord, according to all your righteousness, I pray, let your anger and your fury be turned away from our city, from your city, Jerusalem, your holy mountain, because for our sins and for the iniquities of our fathers, Jerusalem and your people are a reproach to all those around us. You do know that America has become a reproach. There's nothing to us now. How did that happen? But listen to what Daniel says. Verse 17, now therefore, our God, hear the prayer of your servant and his supplications, and for the Lord's sake, cause your face to shine on your sanctuary, which is desolate. Which means this, he is still hopeful for the future. If today's message is only makes you feel hopeless, then I missed. I did not do what I came to do, which is to make you aware, but also to bring you to a place of hopefulness. Our best days are not behind us, our best days are ahead. Amen. Last night there was a gentleman up in his 80s, been through the Korean War and everything, and he was here, a member of our church. On the way out, he said, it's pretty rough out there, rougher than probably we had in Civil War and World War II, because you don't hear guns being fired, and yet things are being destroyed. There's desolation. But, he added, I truly believe God still has his hand on these United States. When I see the world map, I'm a student of history. I see places like Philippi. I see places like Corinth. At the time when these letters were written, they were bustling and they were growing and prospering, and yet there was a decay. And Paul and Peter and John wrote to them to wake up. Now, guess what's left of those places? You have to take an archaeological trip. You have to take a historical tour to go see the ruins. The ruins are left. My heart breaks when I think about, if Christ doesn't come soon, will people be taking historical tours to come see, this is the United States. This was that country. This is the place where this happened, and this is the place where that happened. And there'll be nothing but ruins. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, forgive their sins, and heal their land. Our land needs healing. No matter who is the cause of whatever while we're here, ultimately God allowed it, and repentance is the order of the day. It begins with us. You say, I repent all the time. I tell God I'm sorry. You got to do it for your children's sake, because for their future, I don't know how many years I have. You don't know how many years you have. But if the storm continues, can you imagine the world they will be facing? And more than anything, they need this person, the greatest paradox, Jesus Christ. Fully God became fully man, sinless and yet died for our sins. Yesterday, today, and forever, he is still the same. If you have him, it doesn't matter what age comes or goes, you'll be okay. And this morning, your heart should be broken. If you know in your heart that your children, your grandchildren are not saved, you should be on your knees praying for them. Because you will be forgotten. If Christ doesn't come in another 100 years, your legacy will be wiped out. It'll be unrecognizable. Let me think about Turkey, Asia Minor. It's a Muslim nation. Completely changed. What happened? Well, somewhere there were people just like this, and some stupid preacher was just like me, yelling and telling them to change and come back to God and choose a different set of paradoxes, and they just smiled and scorned and had their own little garbage going on in their life. Can't get their head straight. I don't know. This morning, take that first step to say, God, we're done. Some of y'all are putting friends over God. You would rather sacrifice your children on the altar of friendship. I love you all. You're my friends. None of y'all will ever take the place of my kids and where I need them to be. How do you feel? Don't sacrifice them.